Makhoali is following the shooting incident we've just reported on in Roodepoort. So let's take you back to her now. Veronica, pick up the story for us.
Absolutely, Man. In fact, I can tell you, as we are still standing here at the active scene, police have continued to cordon off both the entrances of the Hammarsdale Road over here, both entrances from the bottom as well as the top. And of course, still really combing the scene in terms of the investigations that have been happening. But we did speak to the deceased's husband, who clarified for us the age of the woman, the passenger that was here, a 40-year-old woman who was on her way to work this morning, where she met, of course, that tragedy where she was about to onboard the Metrobus when she was shot at by an unknown gunman who had, in fact, of course, been on the bus prior, of course, to her getting onto the bus. What we also know is that she leaves behind two children, a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. And this is just some of the details that we've been able to gather about the deceased. But it's also brought into sharp focus, Iman, the issue of crime in the city of Johannesburg. And while we've been speaking to some of the eyewitnesses and the residents here, them explaining, of course, that it was really out of the ordinary what happened here, it does also bring to the fact that the access to the kind of criminal elements that we see in the city does need to be addressed. And to speak to us a little bit more about the scene here and just in general the issue of crime, I'm joined by City Manager Floyd Brink. Sir, thank you so much for your time. I think just first and foremost, from what you've managed to get from the ground and the officials here, just a quick take on the scene from your side.
And thank you very much. And I think I should start off by just expressing our deepest condolences, heartfelt condolences to the deceased family. Indeed, it's one of those incidents. It's quite sad even really to be here. As you've indicated, it's still an active scene, and I've been briefed that around 5 to 6 or 6 this morning, already there was one particular passenger already on the bus. And at that particular point, the bus driver realized that a pistol or a gun was basically cocked right in front there on the front seat. And as and when he pulled over, apparently that was the time when the deceased lady was about to onboard the particular bus, and that's the time I think when certain shots were fired. And here we are now at the scene. It's still active. The police is here. Luckily, what we can indicate to you is that our teams from Metrobus and as well as JMPD will be working very closely with the team from SAPS and the investigating officer, specifically on the deployment of our technology that we've used in terms of Eye on the Bus, and that is what we will be now using in order for us to be able to gather some of the evidence and to work with SAPS on this matter.
And I think obviously just in regards to, as you've said, there will be efforts to get to this matter. But the use of gun violence, the way in which this incident happened in broad daylight, very early in commute, in front of passengers, have we seen a criminal element within the city where it's not just gone beyond the factor of police and SAPS, that they can actually carry out these kind of incidents in broad daylight?
Yeah, so usually from our side as Metrobus and in the city of Johannesburg, I mean, this level of criminality and lawlessness is something that we've not seen on our buses. Usually it's things like robberies and mugging that will take place, more or less petty crime. But I mean, this is to another level. We will be working closely with SAPS. And indeed, I mean, like I said, this level of criminality is something that we've not seen on our buses. And of course, we will not be able to have the capacity to then say we deploy JMPD. News at this point is really to use technology through our Wi-Fi systems and so on, and be able to then ensure that that gets back to the operation room. And that's the Eye on the Bus that we are using specifically on all 300 of our buses in Metrobus. This indeed is a sad incident, and I must emphasize that.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Really hearing there, of course, as well from the city manager when he's speaking about the fact that this is not something that we often see. But you'd remember the city of Johannesburg has recently really seen very intense crimes happening. Of course, you're going to just allow us to just take a look right now at that bus where the incident happened. It's remaining there stationary. That is essentially really the scene of the crime, Iman, where where that specific individual, an unidentified gunman who had apparently boarded the bus at extension 5 here in Fleurhof, waited for this individual, according to some of the eyewitnesses here. And as they were about to board that bus, he then approached her and shot her at point blank. She managed to run away with some of the other passengers who were about to board that bus. And you could imagine the kind of chaos that took place on this road, which is obviously not just an isolated road. There are houses here. Some of the people, residents who were here, were saying that their children were shocked. Some of them were woken up by the sounds of several gunshots that they heard. And of course, then the deceased, a 40-year-old woman, managed to flee away, but the gunman did follow her. And as I've mentioned before, exactly where that Hilux is stationed, right behind it, is where she passed away. And you heard, of course, as well, the city manager, Floyd Brink, they're speaking about the fact that nothing essentially was taken. We often see those petty crimes happening in the city of Johannesburg, where people, their cell phones are taken, their belongings are taken, but right behind that Hilux, the deceased's belongings were still there. So again, it raises questions as to what transpired this morning, who may have been involved, and of course for the family, truly a tragic loss for them as well. Back to you.
Veronica, just one final thing. What is the state of the driver? We understand it was his quick thinking that behoved him to travel with the bus just around the corner, drop off those passengers, remove them from potentially harm's way, circle back to the scene and wait for the police to arrive.
Absolutely. Iman, I can tell you from just the interactions that I've had with the bus driver that he was extremely traumatized. He was even saying to me that he knows those that board his bus. He knows the customers, of course, that he services every morning by name. He knows their routines. He knows their routes. And so he himself was even saying that it was a very unusual morning. And from the fact that he was very quickly able to hear the sound of the gun, essentially, of the gunman essentially getting ready to perhaps maybe even pull the trigger, he sensed that there could have been something wrong. And not only the quick thinking of getting the passengers to safety, but also just being alert to say that something was happening. Of course, that couldn't stop the tragedy that happened, but you get a sense as well that this was not just customers to him, this was a family. And so you could understand the tragedy as well for the passengers and the bus drivers, is that they're seeing someone that they were used to, somebody that they know, somebody that they sat next to in a bus every single day. And for that to take place for them has left them rather scarred and extremely traumatized. But we did hear, of course, as well from Metrobus saying that they will be providing some sort of counseling, not only for the passengers, but for the bus driver himself. He is still here, of course, speaking to some of the officials and also some of the eyewitnesses that were on board the bus and really just being part of the community. And you can imagine for this area, a real shock for them.
Veronica, Makhoali, thank you very much for that update.